Hello, welcome to my Authentic Confidence Toolkit part 4. This work of confidence, of increasing our self-confidence, is lifetime work, especially if we have been feeling low self-confidence most of our lives. It's not just going to change overnight. It has to be consistent work. It has to be consistent evolution and growth over our lifetime, over our whole lifetime. We're going to look at 3 very powerful tools and techniques that I use with my clients to address the things that keep us low, stuck in our low self-confidence. And this thing that keeps us stuck in low self-confidence more than anything else in the world is our inner critic. So tonight we're going to look at inner critic thought stopping, inner critic good enoughness, and radical and unconditional self-acceptance. In yesterday's live, I mentioned that our relationship with ourself is based on relationships that were modeled to us, and how we treat and talk to ourselves is usually how our caregivers spoke to themselves, each other, and us. Many of us were raised to talk badly to ourselves and about ourselves, and we have been culturally programmed to believe that self-deprecation is a sign of intellect and intelligence, when actually it's detrimental. Self-deprecation is detrimental to our overall well-being. And I'm not saying that to be like a party pooper or to take our fun away, but I say this because even though we have a sense of humor, right? Even though we have a good sense of humor and intellectually understand that we don't mean what we say when we're being self-deprecating, our nervous system, which is highly intelligent also, does not. Our highly intelligent nervous system does not know the difference when we're having a joke about ourselves. Our nervous system takes it literally. It takes everything literally. And so what we say to ourselves has a huge effect on our mental, emotional, and physical health and our self-confidence. So every time we say something mean about ourselves, it chips away at that confidence credit score that we started looking at way back in like the first live call. So every time we say something mean or bad about ourselves and to ourselves, it chips away at that confidence credit score that we're building up, right? Just like every time you miss a credit card payment, it chips away at your financial credit score. Okay, it's the same with our self-confidence. It's the same with our self-confidence credit score. Every mean thing we say about ourselves that we take it, that we mean as a joke, that we want to be a joke, our nervous system doesn't know the difference. And this has a lot to do with our inner critic. So the inner critic is usually not funny. It's incredibly shaming, abusive, and mean. And a powerful antidote for this, for our inner critic, is thought stopping. The difference between being self-deprecating and our like shaming, abusive, and mean inner critic. The inner critic is abusive. It doesn't feel good whenever we say these things to ourselves. And the words that we use to thought stop are no, stop, and enough. And we can use them whenever we hear that inner critic, that inner voice chime in that puts us down. And we have to become aware of it and decide that that inner critic's words are not actually our truth. And feeling emotional pain or discomfort when we have these inner critic thoughts is a sign that it's not actually our truth. For example, if we make a mistake in school, in work, or in life in general, and we call ourselves stupid or an idiot, this doesn't bring up pleasant feelings. It doesn't feel good when we do this. If anything, it causes us to shame spiral and feel worse. So now we have created awareness of the feeling and the connection between the voice of the inner critic and that unpleasant emotion. So we can say no in our heads. We can say no, we can say stop, we can say enough. When we do this, it's important to notice how we feel. And of course, like everything else, it takes time and patience. Take notice of how you feel, because this is us standing up for our inner child. Whenever we thought stop, whenever we say no, stop, or enough to the inner critic, we're actually standing up for our inner child. And our low confidence may come from not knowing how to stick up for ourselves, not knowing how to stand up for ourselves. But when we practice thought stopping with our own inner critic, it really helps us to have the confidence and the courage to say no and stand up for ourselves in our external experiences too. Because once you can stand up for yourself internally, you can stand up for yourself externally. And you may not have known how to do that. You may not have felt safe to do that. You may not have felt like it was possible to stand up for yourself. But now you can stand up for yourself internally by saying no, enough, and stop to these internal, critical, mean, judgmental, abusive, and shaming words and thoughts. We can also do it when our outer critic chimes in too. So the outer critic is like the inner critic, but projected outwards and onto other people. Our outer critic makes judgments of other people, and we can practice thought stopping whenever we catch ourselves being judgmental or critical towards other people, because I believe that every single human being deserves respect, kindness, and acceptance, no matter what they look like, no matter what they're doing, no matter who they are, unless, of course, they're harming others. But people just going about their daily lives, and you find yourself perhaps judging someone for the way they look, the way they dress, for what they're doing, that's a really good opportunity for you to thought stop, to say, no, enough, stop. What right do I have to judge other people? What right do I have to criticize this other person in my own head, in my own mind? You might not have the confidence or the courage to say it out loud, but you might say it in your mind. And that, again, is another really good opportunity to practice thought stopping. The next one is the inner critic good enough. Our inner critic can be loud and overwhelming when we're feeling not good enough around any aspect of our lives. We may have been made to feel generally not good enough as a human being by our caregivers, teachers, partners, or people in our community. Or perhaps we were made to feel not good enough at a certain task or skill. So you've been perhaps made to feel not good enough generally as a human, or not good enough around doing a task or a skill, like a subject in school or a job or in a relationship. Sometimes we've been practicing perfectionism and we find it hard to feel good about what we do and about who we are. And sometimes as well, we pick up the feeling of not good enough from other people or society's expectations of us. Maybe we've picked up feeling not good enough about a cultural expectation of us. But I want to ask the question, who decides that you are good enough? Who decides that I'm good enough? Do you get to decide that I'm good enough? Do I get to decide that you're good enough? No, that's not my job. That's not your job, is to decide that you are good enough. It's my job to decide I am good enough. We can also decide that the only person who gets to make us feel anything in life is us. We've been made to feel not good enough. But naturally now I decide that the only person who gets to make me feel anything is me. Like, I'm no longer giving my power away to other people to make me feel things. I get to decide how I feel and what I want to feel. If someone tries to make me feel something, then that's my choice, whether I take it or not, whether I accept their power over me or not. So when we're talking about feeling good enough, seeking improvement in life is great. Seeking improvement and wanting to be better, wanting to be more confident, wanting to feel better and have better, more fun, positive experiences in life is awesome. However, I'm sure that where you are in life right now in this moment is good enough, and that our inner critic's harsh judgments are unwarranted. Actually, you are good enough right now in this moment. It's hard to see it, it's hard to feel it because we've never felt it before, but actually you are good enough exactly right where you are. And if we want to be better, we can be. If we want to get better at something, we can. If we want to get more confident in something, we can. If we want to improve our confidence, or we want to improve a skill, or we want to be a better person, or we want to have more fun, or we want to get better grades, or whatever it is, we can. But we are good enough regardless of these things. I offer you an opportunity to decide that right now in this moment that you are good enough. whatever that may be in life, whether that is you're a good enough student, you're a good enough employee, you're a good enough parent, you're a good enough partner, you're a good enough friend, you're a good enough business owner. And if you're feeling into this and none of these or any of these still don't feel good enough, then are there action steps that you can take to feel good enough in any aspect of life? Because I don't think that good enoughness actually is about doing or being anything different than you already are. If we're talking about a skill, then yes, you can get better at it, but the only way you can get better at it is to practice, make mistakes, fail, do it wrong, and then continue on, and then continue on with your consistent practice. What if you were good enough just as you are in this moment right now, regardless of what other people say or do or what they want you to be? What if you were good enough just as you are in this moment right now, regardless of what other people say, do, or what they want you to be? Can you sit with that for a moment? Can you sit with that and feel into that this moment? How does it feel if you just decided, if you were like to say, you know what, I'm a good enough friend, I'm a good enough partner, I'm a good enough employee, I am a good enough business owner, I'm a good enough student, I'm a good enough pet owner. And if it doesn't feel right, how can you be more good enough? Does it mean realigning yourself to your values and thinking about what you really want in life and who you really want to be? Practice good enough, practice tapping into good enoughness. You can combine this with journaling, with mirror work, with meditation, with all the other things that we have talked about, the affirmations, all these things that we have, the inner child talk. We can mix all these tools together. Is your inner child good enough? Is your younger self good enough? Is a child who's born into the world, are they good enough? What does that child have to do in order to be good enough when they're born into the world? If they made mistakes, then is that such a big deal? I believe that mistakes are here for our benefit so that we can learn faster. When I used to teach at a university, I used to teach my students to make as many mistakes as they could in the workroom when they were with me. And every time they'd make a mistake, we would go, okay, what did you learn? No punishment, no condemning, no making you feel bad, no shaming. What did you learn from this mistake? That's the power of making mistakes. So you are good enough, regardless of what you have done or not done. You are good enough just because you are you. And if you want to get better and you want to improve, then you can, and you must, if you want to, if it's your desire to do so. But just remember that with or without the thing, you are good enough. And that brings us on to our final, number 12, our final tool for this 12 tools to ultimate self-confidence. And this tool might be the most powerful of them all. And it's the one that so many people, including myself, struggle with, right? This is the one that I feel takes the most practice to do. It is radical and unconditional self-acceptance. Tool number 12, the greatest tool of them all, the most powerful tool of them all, the most challenging tool of them all, radical and unconditional self-acceptance. Many of us, including myself, hold internalized toxic shame, which is the belief that we are fundamentally bad, flawed, or wrong. We may feel this way. We may feel ashamed of ourselves in a toxic way because it's been projected onto us by others, or maybe because we made mistakes in the past and we experienced challenging circumstances that we have not accepted or emotionally moved through in a healthy way. But I believe that our mistakes and our flaws are what make us us. They're what make us human beings. Our mistakes and flaws may make it hard to accept ourselves because we might have been punished in the past for making mistakes or for being flawed. And we may have learned to punish ourselves for these mistakes for our whole lives. You might have made a mistake when you were little and you've never let yourself off the hook for it. Maybe you made a mistake in a relationship and you never let yourself off the hook for it. You're punishing yourself. You're disallowing yourself to be with who you want to be or to do what you want to do because you don't believe that you deserve it. But I ask the question, what benefit does this really have? I've heard people say that toxic shame And shame keeps us grounded and protects us. But I believe actually that holding on to our mistakes and our shame is keeping us small and low in our self-confidence. You might think that radically and unconditionally accepting yourself is going to, in spite of your flaws, regardless of your flaws and mistakes, right? Radically and unconditionally accepting yourself, regardless of your flaws and your mistakes in the past, might give you a big head, or you might become too big for your boots, or you might have like a large inflated ego, or even be humiliated in some way. But actually, when we learn to accept ourselves radically and unconditionally, it has the opposite effect. It actually has the opposite effect. We settle into ourselves, we remember who we really are, and we feel authentic confidence for the first time in a very long time, maybe even ever, maybe even we feel confident for the first time ever. And that can be scary. That can be a scary thing as well to experience, because we never felt it before and we don't really know. We think that, oh, is this good? Is this bad? Is this going to give me a big ego? Is this going to make me make my head pop off and fly away like up into the clouds? Radical and unconditional self-acceptance means saying, I accept myself regardless of my shortcomings, my mistakes, and my failures. I accept myself regardless of what other people think and say about me. And this is tough. This can be challenging, especially if you've been made to, there's that made to feel thing again. If you've been made to feel a certain way or made to believe certain things about yourself growing up, that you're not good enough, you're not lovable, you're not worthy. We want these people who made us feel this way, especially if they are our caregivers, their word is gospel. Their word is the truth. Their word is the most important thing when we're little, when we're younger. And all we want is their acceptance. We want their love and their acceptance. And if they don't love and accept us, then that must mean that we're bad and flawed and wrong. But actually, we can love and accept ourselves. We can learn to love and accept ourselves regardless of what they thought and what they said and what they did. Because perhaps they didn't really know us. They didn't really get to know us. They thought they did, and we thought they did, but actually they don't know us. They don't know you. They don't know me. They don't know the things that you really love. They don't know all of your wins and your successes. Perhaps they know some of your failures and mistakes, but what does that really mean? That doesn't mean anything. You're not your mistakes. You're not your flaws. That's not who you are. That's not your identity. Who you are is a creative, kind, amazing, bold, optimistic, excited, fun, awesome human being who's worthy of acceptance and love and compassion and kindness. Many of us have been loved conditionally, which means I will only accept you if you do this. I will only accept you if you do that. That's not unconditional love. That's not unconditional acceptance. That means that I'm only lovable on Thursdays. That means I'm only lovable when I put makeup on, or I don't wear hoodies when I'm not in my comfy clothes. That's nonsense. Says who? Who says? Who makes up these rules for us? We do. We get to decide what's true for us. We get to decide what our truth is wholeheartedly. My truth is I am worthy and lovable because I am me, regardless of what I'm wearing, regardless of how I look, regardless of what I'm doing. It's taken me a long time to embed that within my being. And sometimes it's still difficult because I have been brought up in such an environment where I have to look certain, we have to do certain things to be good enough to be lovable. That's conditional love, and that's not helpful and it's not healthy. So radical, unconditional acceptance comes without conditions. We're not saying I only accept myself when I pass my exams. I only accept myself when I make the money. I only accept myself when I get that job. I only accept myself when I meet that person. I only accept myself when I do this thing or I have that thing. We're saying I accept myself with or without all of that. Either way, it doesn't matter. I accept myself. And that's why it's radical. It's radical because it goes against everything we've been taught to do. And like all new things, it takes practice and patience and consistency. It takes messing it up, right? It takes 2 steps forward, 10 steps back, 2 steps forward, 10 steps back, 4 steps forward, 1 step back. It takes messing it up to get it right. Everything else in this toolkit, you won't get it right. You'll make mistakes, you'll mess it up, and that's great. I welcome that. It's better to be doing it, be trying it, than giving up and not trying it. So when you decide to practice radical unconditional self-acceptance, it could look like practicing writing it down in your journal. It could look like meditating and grounding in that radical self-acceptance, unconditional self-acceptance. It could look like telling your inner child self, your child self, looking at your photos, writing your letter to your child, your inner child, saying, I love and accept you unconditionally, no matter what you're doing, no matter how you look. That's what that could look like. It could, radical unconditional self-acceptance could look like mirror work. It could look like you looking in your eyes, in your mirror, looking at your body, saying, I radically, unconditionally accept myself. It could look like an answer to when your inner critic chimes in. When your inner critic chimes in with why are you doing this? What's going on with that? You can say, well, I accept myself. I radically, unconditionally accept myself. It could look like I radically and unconditionally accept myself. Looking at yourself, looking at your picture, your photo of your younger self. This is my 11-year-old self, and she did not accept herself unconditionally. So now it's my job to look at her and tell her that I radically and unconditionally accept her, no matter what she's wearing, no matter what she looks like, no matter what she's up to. I radically and unconditionally accept her, no matter what. These tools, all these tools, these 12 tools that I've shared for you are designed for you to work on your own as self-help. However, I believe that co-help is even more important than self-help. Self-help is great, but it only gets us so far. Co-help involves having another human being listen to us, validate our feelings, memories, and stories, and help us through the difficult things in life. We can receive co-help from a friend, a non-judgmental friend or parent, a counsellor, life coach, or a therapist. And the most important factor of co-help is that we're listened to and we're not judged. We're not made to feel bad or wrong. We're not made to feel bad or wrong for sharing our experiences, and we're not made to feel bad or wrong for sharing how we feel, for sharing how we really feel. And I know professionally and personally that co-help is a powerful tool for transforming our confidence. So as well as using the tools that we've just chatted about, set an intention to work with someone, to find someone to co-help you with your confidence. That can be me. I also do private sessions with my clients, or you can go out there and you can find someone. Google search, speak to a trusted friend or companion to help you. If this is new and feels like a scary concept, then always reach out to like someone in your work, someone in your school, someone in like your doctor who you can talk to and who can direct you towards a service that you can use. But you can also do an online search for services that may be suitable for your circumstances, whatever your circumstances are. So I hope you've enjoyed this last 4 sessions, these last 4 live calls. I've had a great time. It's been really awesome sharing my favorite tools and techniques for improved self-confidence with you. Have a great rest of your day. Lots of love.